The hotel driveway glimmered under the noon sun as a bright red Ferrari rolled in. The driver, a sharply dressed millionaire, stepped out with the confidence of someone who believed the world belonged to him. An elderly black man, leaning on a cane, admired the car with a gentle smile. His fingers barely brushed the mirror. The millionaire turned sharply. Slap! Gasps erupted. The old man stumbled back, hand trembling against his cheek. The millionaire sneered. "Don't touch what you can't afford." 5 minutes later, he would learn exactly who the old man was. Before we begin, subscribe to our channel and comment where you are watching from so we can bring more stories like these. The morning rose over the city like a machine coming to life. Sharp lines, steel reflections, and a sun that glinted off skyscraper windows as if announcing the start of another ruthless day. Inside one of those towers, on the highest floors, where the carpets were thick and the air smelled of money, power, and espresso, walked a man who had built his entire identity on being untouchable. Nathan Cole, 42 years old, self-made, fast-paced, unapologetically arrogant. His tailored suit hugged him like it had been stitched directly onto his ambition. His shoes clicked with a rhythm of superiority across the marble lobby of his corporate headquarters. Assistants parted like water when he passed. Junior executives stiffened, pretending to look busy. He didn't greet anyone, not because he was in a rush, but because in his world, there were two kinds of people, those above him and those beneath his notice. He checked his watch, a piece worth more than most people's homes, then stepped into a private elevator. The doors closed with a soft hiss, shutting out the world he stepped on every day to climb higher. Inside the elevator, Nathan reviewed his schedule. A high-stakes negotiation at 11. A luxury lunch with investors. A quick PR briefing. The charity gala at the Regal Crown Hotel in the evening. An event he only attended because cameras would be there. Every line of his agenda catered to one thing: his name, his wealth, his image. He believed respect was earned through dominance, through owning the room, owning the deal, owning the narrative. Humility had never existed in his vocabulary. Not anymore. The elevator doors parted at the lobby. His driver waited at the curb, standing beside a cherry-red Ferrari that glistened under the morning sun, like a flame waiting to burn whoever got too close. Nathan loved that car more than he loved most people. He slipped into the passenger seat, slammed the door, and the engine purred with expensive confidence. As the Ferrari pulled into the busy streets, Nathan leaned back, hands folded, chin up, the whole world feeling like it existed to revolve around him. At the same time, just a few blocks away, a city bus rolled to a stop in front of the Regal Crown Hotel. The doors whooshed open, and an elderly man stepped out with slow, careful movements. Mr. Henry Adams, 78. Quiet, gentle, dressed in a suit that had seen many years but was pressed carefully with love and pride. He carried a simple cane and a small folder tucked under his arm. His back was slightly bent, his breathing slow but steady. The lines on his face told stories of survival, service, sacrifice. He had come here today for the Veterans Appreciation Luncheon, an event hosted by a small nonprofit at the hotel. No executives showcasing their charities for clout, just veterans honoring each other. Henry's pace was steady but deliberate as he approached the hotel entrance. He paused at the curb, not out of fear, but because a sleek red Ferrari roared past, turning sharply into the drop-off lane. The sound made him smile faintly. He'd been a mechanic in his younger years, long before the war, long before life took pieces of him he never got back. Cars like that fascinated him, not because they were expensive, but because they were beautiful works of human engineering. His eyes softened with admiration, and he whispered, "Now that's craftsmanship." He didn't know the man stepping out of the Ferrari, Nathan. Didn't see him at all. If he had, he wouldn't have cared. To people like Nathan, men like Henry were invisible. Inside the hotel lobby, Nathan moved like he owned every inch of marble under his feet. He snapped at a valet for opening the door too slowly. He complained to a concierge that the lobby decor looked outdated. He waved off the doorman, who greeted him with a polite smile. He thrived on the power dynamic, the little ways he could make someone feel small. Because in Nathan's mind, respect wasn't earned, it was taken, and then enforced. Lights flashed as guests murmured about the expensive car still idling outside. Nathan smirked. Good. Let them look. Let them admire. Every glance fed his ego like oxygen. Meanwhile, Henry approached the Ferrari with soft steps, admiring the Henry chuckled gently, his voice warm like sunlight on old wood. "Don't worry, son. I'm just admiring it. Nothing more." He raised a shaky hand and lightly traced the air near the mirror, his fingertips making the faintest contact as he steadied himself. To Henry, it was a harmless gesture, a moment of appreciation for beauty and engineering. To Nathan, it might as well have been an insult engraved on the paint. Two men, two worlds, one moment of simple admiration about to become the spark that ignites a storm. But Henry didn't know that. He didn't know the man coming toward him was a storm wearing a suit. The Regal Crown's front drive was a whole little world on its own. Bellhops wheeled suitcases. Valets jogged between cars. Guests stepped out in expensive shoes and careful smiles. The hotel looked like money. Polished gold handles, revolving doors, marble columns. The kind of place that made people. Nathan thrived in places like this. He didn't just fit in, he fed off them. He stepped out of the Ferrari, tossing the keys toward the valet without even making eye contact. "Scratch it and I'll buy your life twice over," he said casually. The young valet caught the keys and forced a shaky laugh, not sure if it was a joke or a warning. Nathan didn't care either way. The point wasn't whether it was funny. The point was whether it made the kid feel small. He adjusted his cufflinks, flicked a speck of imaginary dust from his sleeve, and glanced around with the bored expression of someone used to being the most important person in any space. His phone buzzed. He checked the screen. A message from his assistant. "Board approved the merger. Press wants a quote later. Don't forget gala speech tonight." Nathan smirked. Of course they approved it. Who was gonna tell him no? He typed back one-handed. "Tell them success comes to those who take it." That'll shut them up. He hit send, slid the phone back into his pocket, and finally noticed the people around his car. Two valets, a bellhop, a couple of guests lingering too long with curious eyes, and further to the side, an older man, standing near the back end of the Ferrari, looking at it with, what? Awe? Admiration? Like someone staring at a masterpiece in a museum. Nathan's jaw ticked, just a little. He hated that. The staring, the gawking, as if his car existed for public entertainment. To him, admiration and intrusion sat on the same line, and people without status were always 1 inch away from crossing it. Henry, on the other hand, wasn't thinking about status at all. He stood near the rear of the Ferrari, leaning lightly on his cane, his eyes traveling along the lines of the car from bumper to taillight. There was something familiar about quality like this. Precision, balance, the way every piece fit into the next. He had seen that same kind of dedication in the engines he worked on as a young mechanic, in aircraft parts he inspected during his service, in the machines he maintained long after the uniform came off. "This is a beautiful machine," he murmured. The valet nearest him shifted nervously. "Sir," the young man said under his breath, I should tell you, the owner's a bit particular." Henry glanced at him, amused. "Particular?" "Yeah, like super touchy about it," the valet whispered. "Probably best not to get too close. I've seen him chew people out for less." Henry smiled softly. He didn't take it as an insult, just as information. "Don't worry," he said, voice gentle. "I'm not here to harm anything, just appreciating the craftsmanship." That was the thing about Henry. He knew boundaries. He knew respect. He'd lived a lifetime understanding where lines were drawn and choosing to step carefully. He steadied himself, fingertips brushing the side mirror for balance as he shifted his weight. A whisper. That's all it was. Skin to metal for half a second. No pressure, no smudge. But for the wrong eyes in the wrong mind, that was enough. Nathan had been halfway through the lobby doors when he caught the movement out of the corner of his eye. His body went still. His gaze slid over, sharp and cold. He saw the old man's fingertips touch the mirror, saw the cane, saw the worn suit, saw the bus pass clipped neatly to his pocket, and his mind didn't register. Veteran, elder, human being. It registered. Nobody. Standing too close to his property. His jaw clenched. The rest of the world blurred at the edges as something petty and ugly inside him flared. He turned back toward the car. The valet saw it first, the shift in Nathan's posture, the stillness that came before the storm. "Sir," the valet started, hoping to preempt whatever was about to happen. Nathan's voice sliced right through his attempt. "Did he just touch my car?" It was loud enough for half the front drive to hear. Conversations halted, luggage wheels slowed, heads turned. The valet swallowed. "I didn't ask what he was just doing," Nathan snapped, eyes locked on Henry now. "I asked if he touched my car." Henry turned, eyes soft but clear. "I apologize if—" Nathan cut him off with a raised hand, palm out. "I wasn't talking to you." He walked closer, each step deliberate. The air got tight. The young bellhop shifted awkwardly, looking away. The doorman stared at the ground. No one moved to intervene. They'd seen men like Nathan before. Men with money, with power, with reputations that made management nervous. Men you didn't argue with if you wanted to keep your job. Nathan stopped in front of Henry, close enough to smell the faint mix of old aftershave and the subtle, clean scent of laundry soap. Up close, he could see the lines in the old man's face, the gray in his hair, the way his left hand trembled slightly on the cane. None of that softened him. "What made you think you could put your hands on my car?" Nathan asked, his voice low but carrying. Henry held his gaze, not defensive, not scared, just earnest. "I'm sorry, son," he said calmly. "I was admiring it. I only steadied myself for a moment. Didn't mean any harm." The valet tried again, more desperate now. "He wasn't doing anything, sir. He was just Lou." Nathan shot him a glare that cut him to silence. "So because you're—" "What?" Nathan sneered, flicking his eyes up and down Henry's worn suit. "Curious? Tired? Old? That means you can put your hands on something you don't own?" Henry's fingers tightened on the cane. "I understand respect," he said quietly. I served a long time. I'd never damage something that wasn't mine. A guest walking past slowed to a stop, sensing things were going sideways. Nathan's lip curled. Yeah? Well, I don't care where you served, he said, mocking the word with air quotes. You don't touch what you can't afford. Basic rule. The sentence hung in the air like smoke. Henry absorbed it with a small nod. He'd heard worse in his lifetime. From strangers, from systems, from people who'd never risked anything but their pride. He could have walked away in front of staff who already got treated like they were disposable, in front of strangers who pretended not to see. Henry straightened, just a little. I didn't touch your car with disrespect, he said, voice still calm. Only appreciation. Nathan laughed. Loud, sharp, ugly. I don't need appreciation from someone who rode in on a bus, he said. Next time, keep your hands and your admiration to yourself. The words burned. Not because of the bus. Henry didn't care about that. They burned because of the way he said someone, like Henry was a smudge on the moment, an interruption. The valet flinched. A passing couple exchanged a look. Discomfort, disapproval, uncertainty. Still, no one said anything. No one stepped in. The cuts kept coming, small and sharp. That one lingered. Henry's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. He'd endured worse. He'd come from times when insults were backed by laws and threats, not just cruelty. But humiliation in public was its own kind of pain. He steadied himself on his cane, eyes dropping for a second. The valet's cheeks flamed with shame that wasn't his. I'm really sorry, sir, the young man murmured to Henry under his breath. He's always like this. Henry gave him a small, tired smile. It's all right. Son, he said, you're not the one I pity. He turned his gaze back to the Ferrari, just for a moment. He didn't see status. He saw steel, wheels, rubber, paint, things that could be replaced. Unlike dignity, unlike honor, unlike respect. He adjusted his grip on the cane and started toward the entrance. Behind him, Nathan was already inside. Staff rushed, apologized, typed faster, offered water. He never made eye contact. He talked over them, interrupting, dismissing, waving his hand. I don't have all day, he said to a woman who had been working back-to-back shifts. I don't care about the system, he told the manager who couldn't control the computer. If this is how you treat premium guests, he announced to no one and everyone at the same time, you're lucky we still come here. His voice carried. Every word was a reminder that in his world, respect was a one-way street. Outside, through the large glass windows, Henry made his way toward the smaller banquet hall entrance, where a simple sign read, Veterans Luncheon, this way. He walked slowly, each step steady, shoulders relaxed. He didn't know that the man who had just belittled him would be pulled into his orbit again. He didn't know that his quiet dignity would soon stand in brutal contrast to someone else's loud pride. All he knew was that his legs ached, his back hurt, and he was grateful to still be here, still walking, still breathing, still capable of appreciating the beauty in a machine, even when its owner had none. The stage was set. The world had watched and stayed silent, but not everyone had looked away. Across the lobby, sitting on a bench with a camera bag at her feet, a young woman had seen the whole thing, and her phone was still recording. The lobby of the Regal Crown Hotel buzzed with wealth and chatter. Business suits, glittering jewelry, designer heels tapping across marble. Conversations rose and fell like waves. We closed the deal last night. Flew in just for the gala. Did you see that red Ferrari outside? Nathan Cole thrived in this kind of air. It was rich, loud. He stood at the reception desk, berating a manager who kept apologizing between shaky breaths. "I ordered early check-in because I expect early check-in," Nathan said, voice raised enough for bystanders to look. "This place calls itself luxury?" The manager swallowed. I understand, sir. We're working as fast as we—" "Working fast?" Nathan scoffed. "If you worked fast, I wouldn't be standing here watching you struggle with a keyboard." People exchanged looks, most disapproving, none brave enough to speak up. Nathan enjoyed that part, the way a crowd could be full yet powerless. He turned sharply toward the entrance, ready to throw another complaint at the air. And that's when he saw it. Henry Adams standing once again beside the Ferrari. The old man had paused to catch his breath before entering his luncheon hall, leaning on the cane, one hand resting lightly on the mirror again. Not to admire this time, but to steady himself. In Nathan's mind, it wasn't support. It was defiance. His temper snapped like a frayed cable. The front desk manager followed his gaze. "Oh no," she whispered. Nathan stormed across the lobby, each step echoing like a warning shot. People around him parted instinctively, sensing danger radiating off him like heat. Henry heard the footsteps too late. Nathan's voice exploded before he reached him. "I told you not to touch my car!" Henry turned, startled, lifting his hand away slowly. "I only leaned for a moment, son. My leg—" Nathan didn't let him finish. He didn't even let him breathe. In one swift, reckless movement, he slapped him. A full, loud, open-handed strike. The sound cracked through the entrance like a firework. Smack. Henry's head jerked sideways. His cane slipped, his knees buckled. The valet gasped. The bellhop dropped a suitcase. Someone near the door whispered, "Oh my God." Henry barely caught himself on the edge of the car, breath shaking, hand trembling as the echo faded. For a moment, no one moved. No one breathed. The world froze, like the universe itself was ashamed of what just happened. Nathan stepped back, jaw clenched, chest rising like an animal that had asserted dominance. "What did I say?" he hissed. "Don't touch what doesn't belong to you." Henry steadied himself, fingers pressing into the polished paint, his voice trembling from humiliation rather than pain. "I meant no harm," he whispered. His eyes glistened, not from the sting on his cheek, but from something far deeper. A wound that wasn't physical. Nathan scoffed. "Next time, remember where you stand." A hotel guest muttered loudly, "Is he serious right now?" Another whispered, "That's an old man." And someone else, "I think he's a veteran. Isn't that Henry Adams?" Nathan heard none of it, or ignored all of it, as he adjusted his jacket and turned back toward the lobby, convinced the moment made him look powerful. It didn't. It made everyone else sick. Even the doorman looked away, shame tightening his chest. Henry swallowed hard, lifting his hand from the car with trembling grace. His jaw tightened, not in anger, but in the effort to maintain dignity in a moment designed to steal it. He whispered, almost to himself, "You didn't have to hit me." Nathan didn't even look back. Of all the people in the driveway, only one wasn't frozen in place. Laura Mitchell, the young journalist with the camera bag. Her phone, still recording, captured everything. The slap, the stumble, the sound. Nathan's sneer, the crowd's silence, Henry's shaking hand. She lowered the phone, her heart pounding, her jaw trembling with fury. "Unbelievable," she whispered. She recognized Henry immediately, the same man scheduled to be honored later at the Veterans Luncheon. The man whose service had been documented in the very notes inside her bag. Nathan Cole had no idea who he slapped, no idea who he humiliated, no idea how this moment, this single act of arrogance, would follow him like a shadow he could never outrun. Laura inhaled shakily and pressed save. The people around her began murmuring louder. "I can't believe he hit him. Someone should call security. He shouldn't get away with that. Is the old man okay?" But Henry stood upright as best he could, adjusting his jacket, lifting his chin despite the tremor in his hands. He refused to be small. He refused to be pitied. With quiet dignity, he murmured to the valet, "Could you point me to the luncheon hall, son?" The valet's voice cracked. "Yes, sir. Right this way." As Henry walked slowly toward the hall, leaning heavier on his cane, Laura followed at a distance, protective, angry, heart full of something she hadn't expected to feel today. Meanwhile, Nathan disappeared into the hotel crowd, unaware that dozens of phones had captured the moment, unaware that his reputation had already begun to bleed, unaware that the most humiliating moment of his life hadn't happened yet. It was coming, and it would hit harder than his slap ever could. Laura Mitchell stood just inside the lobby, her pulse still thundering under her skin. She'd been in journalism long enough to see rude CEOs, screaming executives, even politicians who believed they were above human decency. But she had never seen a man strike an elder in broad daylight over something as insignificant as a car. She looked down at her phone, hands still trembling. The video was crisp, clear, unflinching. The slap, the stumble, the stunned silence. Nathan's cold, arrogant smirk. Henry's quiet dignity. She swallowed hard. "This is going to blow up," she whispered. Her fingers hesitated over the screen, as if her brain needed one more moment to process what her eyes had already accepted. Nathan Cole wasn't just wealthy. He wasn't just powerful. He wasn't just another entitled man having a bad day. He was a walking example of the worst kind of arrogance, the kind that believed the world existed to serve him, and anyone outside his bubble was insignificant. But the man he slapped? Henry Adams. Laura's breath caught. She set the phone against her chest and rummaged through her bag until she found the printed program for the charity gala later that night. The headline read, "Honoring Service and Sacrifice, Celebrating the Life of Henry Adams." She scanned the bullet points. Decorated war veteran, former military engineer, volunteer mentor, humanitarian award recipient, guest of honor. Her jaw. The man Nathan dismissed as someone who doesn't belong near my car was the man the event they were both attending was built to honor. Suddenly, the whole moment replayed with sharper clarity. Henry's trembling hand clutching his cane, his voice gentle and apologetic, his steady, dignified refusal to escalate, his soft, "I meant no harm." Laura felt anger rush through her like a sudden fever. She opened her phone again. Her editor, James, was a man who understood stories, especially the ones that needed to be heard. She typed quickly, "Laura M., I have something. Just witnessed a businessman assault an elderly veteran outside the hotel. Got it all on video." A typing bubble appeared almost instantly. James, assault? Who's the victim? She sent the clip of Henry's name circled in the event program. Another bubble. James, is this the same Henry Adams, the vet, the engineer? She replied, Laura M. Yes, and he's the guest of honor tonight. James's reply came back in less than 5 seconds. James, get me the clip, now. She hesitated for a moment, long enough to replay Henry's expression just after the slap. The pain wasn't physical. It was the humiliation, the disrespect, the cruel reminder that some people saw him as less than human. Laura pressed send. The video uploaded quickly, too quickly for her heart to catch up. Her editor's bubble appeared again. James, this will explode. Posted anonymously through the community channel. I'll handle the rest. Stay close to the story. Laura nodded to herself. Yes, she whispered. Stay close. She looked around the lobby. She spotted him at the end of the hallway, leading toward the smaller banquet hall, walking slowly with his cane, posture stiff from the sting of what had just happened, and her chest tightened. Henry didn't have anyone defending him. Not one guest. Not one staff member. Not one bystander brave enough to speak in the moment. But now the world was about to see everything. Laura walked toward him. She didn't want to overwhelm him, didn't want to make him feel like a spectacle. Oh yes, the young woman from the paper. Good to meet you. He extended a trembling hand. Laura shook it carefully, her voice warm but steady. Mr. Adams, I saw what happened outside. His eyes flickered downward for a moment, a flash of embarrassment, almost shame. Ah, he murmured. I wish folks hadn't seen that. Sir, Laura said gently, you didn't do anything wrong. He gave a soft sigh, his shoulders relaxing a little. I've faced worse, he said, but it stings different when it's public. Laura nodded slowly. I know, and I'm so sorry. A pause. People need to see what happened. People need to understand the way he treated you. Henry shook his head lightly. Anger won't fix him, he said. I won't ask anyone to chase revenge on my behalf. Well, he said, turning toward the luncheon hall, truth has a way of finding daylight. She watched him walk inside, slow but steady, his dignity fully intact despite the bruise forming on his cheek. Laura exhaled sharply, checking her phone again. A notification popped up. Community Watch Channel, new post, 23 seconds ago, 1.4K views. Her video was already spreading. The caption she wrote floated under it. Respect people before you know their story. She didn't include Nathan's name, didn't include Henry's either. People would figure it out soon enough. And when they did, the storm would follow. The only question now was, would Nathan survive it unchanged? Or would the moment he slapped an old man with a quiet soul become the moment that slapped him awake? For a while, Nathan's day went exactly how he liked it. He got his suite. He got his view. He got 3 employees apologizing to him at the same time. He aired a few more complaints for good measure, just to remind everyone how important he was. By midday, he was stretched out on the edge of the king-size bed in his suite. Laptop open, phone charging, TV on mute with stock tickers scrolling by in green and red. He'd showered, changed into a fresh shirt, and was halfway through dictating a condescending email to a junior partner when his phone buzzed. Then buzzed again. Then again. And again. He frowned, glancing over. Notifications stacked up like a deck of cards. Group chats, missed calls, emails flagged urgent. He grabbed the phone, irritation already rising. What now? He muttered. The first thing he saw was a text from one of his board members. You at the Regal Crown right now? He frowned. Yeah, why? 3 dots appeared, then vanished, then appeared again. Then nothing. Weird. Another text came in from his PR manager. We need to talk. ASAP. Call me. He rolled his eyes. I'm busy. Send it in an email. He dropped the phone on the bed, pushed his laptop open again, and tried to get back into his email draft. 2 seconds later, the phone buzzed again. Another text. Different contact. This you? Below it, a link. Nathan stared at it for a second. His mood shifted from annoyed to mildly amused. He tapped it. A video opened. Only a frozen frame at first. The hotel driveway. A red Ferrari. An old man with a cane. Nathan's stomach dipped, just a fraction. He hit play. There he was, walking across the frame, face pinched with anger. Words clear as day. Did he just touch my car? He watched the scene unfold, like it was someone else, some stranger he didn't know. His own voice sounded different coming from the tiny speakers, more venomous. The video ended on Henry's face, eyes glossy, cheek reddened, dignity barely holding on. The caption sat right under it in bold, simple text. Respect people before you know their story. Views, 48,000. Comments pouring in. He scrolled. Who slaps an old man over a car? I hope this guy gets exposed. Anyone know where this is? It's the Regal Crown. Find him now. Nathan's throat tightened. Another notification slid down from the top of his screen. Trending. Hashtag slap at the crown. He ignored it. The TV, still on mute, flashed something in the corner of his eye. He looked up. Local circulating online this afternoon. The video appears to show a wealthy hotel guest striking an elderly man outside the Regal Crown. He lowered the volume again, heart hammering. Wealthy hotel guest. They hadn't used his name yet. Yet, his phone buzzed again. He opened a new message from his PR manager, marked with red exclamation points. That's you. It's already at 100K views. Don't reply to anyone. Don't post anything. We need to get ahead of this. Another one came in from an unknown number. Mr. Cole, this is Rebecca Ward, CEO of Belmont Hotels. I need to speak with you immediately. His jaw clenched. This was getting out of hand. He typed out a quick reply to his PR contact. Calm down. It's just a clip. People forget. Before he could hit send, there was a knock at the door. Sharp, firm, professional. Nathan stiffened. He wasn't expecting room service. He wasn't expecting anyone. He set the phone down, smoothed his shirt, and walked over, annoyance sitting high on his shoulders. When he opened the door, 2 hotel security officers stood there. Behind them, the hotel's general manager and a woman Nathan recognized from their website, the regional director. They all wore polite, controlled expressions. Nathan's irritation faded into suspicion. Mr. Cole, the general manager said, carefully, we'd like to speak with you, if you have a moment. He gave them a thin-lipped smile. Now? He asked. I'm a little busy preparing for the gala. This is about the gala, the woman behind the manager said. Her tone was measured, but there was steel under it, and about an incident at our front entrance. For a split second, he considered denying everything, acting confused, playing dumb. But he'd built his whole brand on being the man who never backed down, never apologized, never admitted weakness. ... He straightened his shoulders. Fine, he said. Let's talk. They stepped aside, gesturing politely down the hall. Nathan walked between them like a man being escorted to a VIP lounge. At least, that's what he told himself. Guests they passed gave him strange looks, some whispering, some turning away, some staring with open disgust. His stomach knotted. He pushed the feeling down. They took the elevator down, past the lobby, to a lower conference level. The doors opened onto a quieter hallway, lined with small meeting rooms. They led him to one at the end of the hall. The door was closed. Nathan's ego tried to comfort him. Private meeting. Probably to smooth things over. Maybe some sponsor got mad. I can fix this. One of the security officers opened the door. Nathan walked in, and his confidence began to crack. The room wasn't big, but it was full. Hotel leadership sat along one side of the table. A few key donors sat along the other. Several veterans in neat suits and pinned medals sat in the back, watching. Laura stood near the far corner, notebook in hand, phone tucked into her pocket. At the center of the table, sitting with quiet posture, hands folded gently in his lap, was Henry Adams. The bruise on his cheek had darkened. He looked up when Nathan entered. Their eyes met. Nathan's pulse spiked. Henry's gaze wasn't angry. It was tired, deep, incredibly human, which made it worse. The hotel CEO, Rebecca Ward, stood from her seat. "Mr. Cole," she said, voice cool and professional, "please, have a seat." He glanced around, realizing for the first time that this was not about his comfort. Still, he tried. "This some kind of mediation?" he asked, smirking slightly. "Because if this is about the car thing, I think people are overreacting." Laura pulled out her phone, without a word, tapped once, and placed it face up on the table. The room went silent. The video began to play. Again. The slap. The stumble. Nathan's face. Henry's humiliation. And this time, Nathan had to watch it in a room where he wasn't the loudest presence. He saw his own anger freeze-framed in high definition, saw the flinch ripple across the valet's face, saw Henry's hand shaking on the cane, heard his own voice dripping with contempt. "You don't touch what you can't afford. Basic rule." The video ended. Silence pressed on the room like a physical weight. One of the donors shifted in his seat, disgust written all over his face. "You struck a veteran," he said quietly. Nathan's head jerked toward him. "A what?" Rebecca's voice was calm, but it cut deeper than a shout. "This is Mr. Henry Adams," she said. Nathan's mouth went dry. He looked at Henry again as if seeing him for the first time, not as some old man, not as bus pass and worn suit, but as someone who had lived, served, sacrificed. The room swam around him for a second. His instinct was to defend himself. He reached for the old habits. "This is getting blown out of proportion," he said, fighting to keep his voice steady. "He touched my car." One of the veterans in the back, a man with a silver beard and a chest full of medals, pushed himself up with his cane. The sound of it hitting the floor echoed. "Son," the man said, voice rough but steady. "He fought for a country where men like you could get rich and drive shiny toys." Nathan's mouth snapped shut. The veteran continued. "You don't have to like him. You don't have to salute him. But you sure as hell don't get to put your hands on him." The words hit Nathan harder than any physical strike. He looked back at Henry. Henry was still sitting quietly, still steady, still dignified. He hadn't spoken once since Nathan walked in. Rebecca folded her hands. "We've spoken to our sponsors," she said, "to the Veterans Organization, to our legal team. We will be making a statement. But before we do, you have one chance to respond in this room." Every eye focused on Nathan, the man who'd walked through life believing money made him untouchable, finally realized he had nowhere to run. For the first time, he felt something new sitting heavy in his chest. Not anger, not annoyance. Shame. Real, unfamiliar, suffocating shame. He opened his mouth, and for once, nothing arrogant came out. Nathan swallowed hard, trying to force words out, but his throat felt thick, tight, glued shut under the weight of every judgmental stare in the room. He cleared his throat once, twice. Finally, I didn't blink, didn't rescue him from his own unraveling. But Nathan could feel the room shifting. They weren't impressed. They weren't moved. They weren't on his side. Rebecca kept her eyes steady on him. Respect isn't based on knowing someone's resume, Mr. Cole. It's based on knowing they're human. Nathan's breath faltered. That line cut deeper than anything he expected. He tried again, reaching for some piece of control, some old muscle memory of manipulation and corporate charm. Look, I was frustrated. The hotel staff, they weren't, this was all escalated. He opened his mouth, and this time, what came out wasn't rehearsed, wasn't polished, wasn't power-wrapped. It was small, and painfully honest. I lost control. The veterans didn't flinch. They'd heard every excuse in life. But honesty? That earned a sliver of attention. Nathan exhaled shakily, shoulders slumping. His voice softened, not intentionally, but because he was finally out of armor. I shouldn't have touched him. I shouldn't have reacted like that. I didn't even think. I just snapped. He pressed a hand over his forehead, fingers trembling. I grew up around people who believed things make you important. Cars, houses, money. And I started believing it too. Maybe I still do. He looked down, refusing to meet Henry's gaze. I'm sorry. It doesn't excuse anything. I just wasn't raised to see people the right way. The veteran with the cane stiffened. No one is raised perfect, he said solemnly. But you're a grown man. At some point, you choose who you become. Nathan felt his stomach drop. He didn't want to cry. Not here, not in this room. But shame doesn't ask permission. He forced himself to look at Henry. The old man's eyes weren't hateful. They weren't angry. They were sad. And that was somehow worse. Nathan's voice trembled. I'm sorry, Mr. Adams. Truly, I hurt you. And I humiliated you. And for what? A car? My ego? He shook his head. I was wrong. Completely. Henry finally spoke. Soft, thin, but steady. I forgive you. Nathan blinked, startled. Henry continued. But forgiveness doesn't erase consequences. It doesn't erase the hurt. It doesn't erase the lesson you needed to learn. Nathan's throat tightened again. Henry leaned forward slightly, hands folded. You see, son, I faced men with guns, men with hatred, men blinded by fear. But you, he sighed gently, you were blinded by pride. And pride harms more people than any weapon. Nathan stared at him, eyes burning. He had never been spoken to like this. Not by his father, not by a mentor, not by anyone. Henry wasn't yelling. He wasn't shaming him. He was teaching him, simply by existing. Nathan opened his mouth again, but only one whisper came out. I don't deserve your forgiveness. Henry nodded. No one ever does. Forgiveness is a gift, not a reward. That was the moment Nathan broke. Completely, silently, deeply. The room watched a man who had spent 40 years believing he was untouchable finally touch the ground. He lowered his head into his hands, not hiding, not performing, not constructing sympathy, just breaking. His voice came out raw. I don't want to be this person anymore. Laura, watching from the corner, finally understood. This wasn't a story about a slap. It was a story about a fall. A necessary fall. Rebecca folded her hands gently. Mr. Cole, What happens next is up to you. But the first step is acknowledging the damage you've caused. Not just to Mr. Adams, but to everyone who watched, to everyone you dismissed, to yourself. Nathan nodded slowly. I understand. The silver-bearded veteran stepped closer, cane clicking against the floor. One day, he said quietly, a man realizes his legacy won't be measured by cars, but by how he treats people who can't do anything for him. Henry stood carefully, pressing weight onto his cane. He stepped closer to Nathan, not invading, not intimidating, just sharing a space. Son, Henry said softly, pain taught me things I never wanted to learn. Maybe today is your lesson. Don't waste it. Nathan blinked hard, chest rising. I won't, he said. For the first time in his life, he meant it. The following morning, the Regal Crown Hotel hummed with a different kind of energy. Not excitement, not luxury, not gala chatter. Something heavier, more intentional, more human. News vans lined the street. Camera crews adjusted microphones. Veterans gathered in their dress jackets and polished shoes. Hotel staff whispered softly as they prepared the ballroom. This wasn't going to be just another luncheon. This was the day truth had to breathe. Inside the boardroom, where the confrontation happened, Nathan sat alone at a long table, staring at the formal statement in front of him. He hadn't slept. Not because of fear, but because shame had a way of replaying itself in the mind like a scratched record. The slap, Henry's stumble, the way people looked at him, the way Henry looked at him. His throat tightened again at the memory. A knock at the door pulled him out of the spiral. Rebecca Ward stepped inside. Mr. Cole, she said calmly, the press is setting up. We'll begin shortly. Nathan nodded. He stood up, straightened his jacket, not to look powerful, but to look presentable, responsible, accountable. Rebecca watched him a moment. You sure you want to go through with this? She asked softly. Most men in your position would run, hide, lawyer up, deny everything. Nathan let out a long breath. Yes, he said. I'm sure. Running is what the old me would have done. Rebecca gave a small nod. She could see it, the shift in him, subtle but real. Follow me, she said. They walked down a corridor that opened into the main ballroom. The room was full. Camera, journalists, veterans, hotel executives, guests, employees, people holding coffee cups but not drinking, people staring but not speaking. And at the front of the room, sitting with perfect posture, cane resting beside him, was Henry Adams. Nathan stopped in the doorway. For a moment, he considered turning around, not to escape consequences, but because he didn't feel worthy of being in the same room as the man he'd humiliated. But Henry looked up, not with anger, not with judgment, just quiet acknowledgement. Nathan exhaled and walked forward. Rebecca stepped up to the podium. Thank you all for being here. This luncheon was meant to honor the decades of service from Mr. Henry Adams. She paused. But after yesterday's incident, this moment is now about two things: truth and accountability. A hush fell over the room. Mr. Nathan Cole has requested to speak publicly. All eyes turned. Nathan stepped toward the podium, the statement trembling slightly in his hands. He cleared his throat. The microphone amplified even the smallest shake in his breath. I want to start, he said softly, by saying I'm sorry. No rehearsed charm, no corporate polish, just the quiet voice of a man standing in the wreckage he created. I spent most of my life believing respect was earned through status and money. I thought luxury made me untouchable. I thought success meant I didn't have to care about anyone who didn't fit my world. He swallowed. Yesterday, I struck an elderly man because he touched my car. A murmur of disapproval spread through the crowd. Nathan nodded. You should be angry. I am angry. At myself. He paused, breath shaky. The man I slapped was not only gentle and harmless, he was a veteran who gave his life to serving this country. He turned toward Henry. Their eyes met. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm grateful you offered it anyway. Henry gave a small nod, eyes soft. Nathan continued. So today, I'm taking responsibility, publicly, fully. He lifted the paper. I'm donating $5 million to the Veterans Housing Foundation, anonymously, originally. But I realize anonymity would have been another way to avoid accountability. Gasps rippled. That wasn't pocket change. That was vulnerability. I am also funding full accessibility upgrades at this hotel, ramps, lifts, transportation assistance, in honor of Mr. Adams. He paused. And to the staff I disrespected, I am sorry. You deserved better. A young valet at the back slowly wiped a tear. I cannot undo what I did, but I can choose who I become from this day on. He folded the paper and stepped away from the podium. The room fell silent. Then a sound broke through. Slow, steady, beginning from the veterans section. Clap, clap, clap. The applause grew, cautious at first, then fuller, then warm. Not because Nathan was redeemed, but because he finally understood humility. Henry stood. The room rose with him, not out of obligation, but out of respect earned over a lifetime. Rebecca approached him with a microphone. Mr. Adams, she said, we'd be honored if you would speak. Henry shook his head gently. I don't have much to say, he began, voice soft but steady. I didn't come here yesterday, looking for trouble. I came for fellowship, for remembrance. But life teaches us in strange ways. He turned toward Nathan. You learned something yesterday, and that matters. But life will keep testing whether you hold on to the lesson. Nathan nodded, eyes glassy. Henry continued. We cannot control how others treat us, but we can control what we stand for. Dignity, kindness, humility. Those things last longer than engines and price tags. He placed a hand on Nathan's shoulder, a gesture of grace. We all fall short. What matters is whether we rise different. Nathan lowered his head, overwhelmed. Henry turned back to the crowd. And now, let's eat, he said lightly, drawing a roomful of smiles and gentle laughter. As people began moving toward the tables, Nathan started to walk away quietly, not wanting to overshadow Henry's moment. But Henry called out softly, Son. Nathan paused. Henry approached him slowly, leaning on his cane. You did right today, Henry said. Don't let it be a one-time thing. Nathan nodded. I won't, he whispered. Henry smiled, warm, sincere. That's what makes a man. The late afternoon sun dipped low behind the hotel, casting long, soft shadows across the marble driveway where everything had begun. The gala crowd had dispersed. The reporters had packed up their microphones. The veterans lingered in the lobby, sharing old stories over coffee and gentle laughter. And Nathan Cole stood alone beside the same Ferrari that had ignited everything. Only this time, he wasn't looking at it with pride, or possessiveness, or ego. He looked at it the way someone stares at an old photograph, seeing not the object, but the mistake tied to it. He let out a slow breath, watching the way the sunlight slid across the red paint. A younger version of him, the man he was just 24 hours ago, would have polished the car before driving it, checked his reflection in the door, smirked at anyone who dared to admire it. But now it felt small, almost meaningless. The sound of a cane tapping softly on stone broke the quiet. Henry Adams approached, walking slowly, carefully, but with unmistakable dignity. Nathan turned, surprised. "Mr. Adams, you didn't have to come out here." Henry smiled lightly. "I walk where I please, son," he said. Henry stepped up beside him, both men staring at the Ferrari. "Beautiful car," Henry murmured. "It's just metal," Nathan replied, voice almost embarrassed. Henry nodded. "It took you one day to learn what some men never learn in a lifetime." Nathan swallowed. "I wish I didn't have to learn it this way," he said quietly. "I wish I could go back and undo everything." "You can't," Henry answered gently, "but you can go forward better." The breeze picked up, rustling the leaves along the hotel entrance. For a moment, neither man spoke. It was Henry who broke the silence again. "You know," he said, "I've seen powerful men fall hard. I've seen arrogant men crumble. I've seen selfish men lose everything." He shifted his weight on the cane, looking at Nathan with soft, steady eyes. But very few admit when they're wrong. Nathan let out a shaky breath. "I didn't just hurt you," he said. "I embarrassed you, in front of strangers." "You did, and you still forgave me." Henry smiled again, small, warm, the kind only someone with a gentle heart could give. "Forgiveness," Henry said, "isn't about excusing what was done. It's about freeing yourself from the poison someone else tried to put in you." Nathan swallowed the lump forming in his throat. He looked at Henry, really looked at him. His frail hands, his worn suit, his gentle eyes, his steady dignity. A man Nathan once dismissed as invisible. He looked down. "I thought being rich made me more important," Nathan said softly. "I thought a car like this meant something." Henry leaned in slightly. "It does," he said. "It means you're lucky. It means you worked hard. Maybe it even means you were blessed. But it doesn't make you better." Nathan nodded slowly. Henry tapped his cane on the ground. "Let me tell you something, son," he continued. "Respect, true respect, is measured by how you treat the people who can't give you anything in return." The words settled between them like falling leaves. Nathan looked up again, eyes glistening. "Thank you," he whispered, "for everything." Henry patted his arm lightly. "Just promise me one thing. Anything. Let this change you." His voice softened. "And let it be real." Nathan nodded hard. "It will be." Henry smiled. "I believe you." He turned and began walking back toward the hotel entrance. Slow, careful, but strong. Nathan watched him go, feeling something shift deep inside his chest, something heavy, something old, something that cracked open and let light in. He wasn't a perfect man now, not a good man instantly, but he was a different man, a man who understood, a man who'd been humbled, a man who finally saw people, really saw them, not through the lens of wealth, but through the lens of humanity. Nathan turned back toward the Ferrari, but he didn't touch it. Not the door, not the mirror, not the hood. For the first time, the car didn't feel like an extension of his worth. It was just a car. He walked around it, not with reverence, but with calm acceptance, and opened the passenger side door, not the driver's. He sat down, resting his hands on the steering wheel, staring straight ahead. His voice, when it came, was soft, almost a whisper, almost a prayer. "I thought wealth made me superior. I thought power made me untouchable. I thought a car proved I mattered. He exhaled deeply, but a